Hello YouTube and welcome to One Canadian's Perspective. My name's Colin. Thanks for joining me today. I know I ranted about this briefly last week, but I wanted to rant about it again today because it's just too good. Last week, Mark Carney announced to Canada that we're really close to a trade deal with the US and that we might see something by the end of this week. That was before Doug Ford released an ad about Reagan talking about tariffs, which was contextually correct. Reagan is anti-tariff and is pro-free trade, but you know, it pissed Trump. Allegedly, it pissed Trump off enough that he decided that okay, we're not going to negotiate any trade deals with Canada, which, as I mentioned before, is kind of funny because Carney seems to love announcing things just as much as Trudeau does. And what I mean is, you know, I think it was after the election, there was supposed to be a trade deal within 30 days. Then it was, June 7th, then June 15th, then August 1st. And the latest announcement of a possible trade deal was last week that we're supposed to get something by the end of this week. And now that looks like it's off, which I find very curious because Doug Ford has mentioned that Carney saw and knew of what he wanted to do. So, I mean, you can say that Carney controls Ford as much as Trump controls Newsom, but you know, Ford and Carney have gotten along really well, and they seem to be very, very buddy-buddy. So, you know, I don't really know what's going on there. But in any case, Ford released that new ad, and you know, that Reagan ad, which contextually was correct, and you know, the trade talks are off now, which gets me to the point where I want to complain. I just want to say to Mark Carney and the Liberals, please stop setting expectations really high that we're going to get deals soon, okay? Do what politicians do and do what other corporate executives are supposed to do, which is set expectation low and then beat them, right? I don't want to hear that, oh yeah, you know, we're going to expect a trade deal this time, or we expect a trade deal that time. Just stop telling me about, I know you can't negotiate in public, okay? So just stop telling me when a deal is expected and just announce one when it's done. Getting to that, again, is something I talked about last week. It drives me nuts that we've already unilaterally surrendered, okay? Whether you thought the digital services tax was a good tax or a bad tax, or whether you think reciprocal tariffs is a good thing or not, okay? We've already given up those things in an effort to get talks, in order to buy goodwill to get talks with the US. So what are we going to talk about when Kuzma is going to be renegotiated next year? What do we have to offer? We've already given the Americans everything they wanted. So, I mean, I can see why Trump doesn't want to talk. Like, what's there to talk about? Canada just gives up every position. So why would I need to talk? It's just really, really frustrating because Carney's pitch to Canadians earlier in the year is, I'm the adult in the room, I can manage Trump, I can get a deal that's good for Canada and so forth. And I mean, it's very clear to anybody watching American politics that the deal that Trump gets is not worth the paper it's signed on. It's not even worth the video memory that it's taped on, because he goes back on it at a whim. I mean, you know, Trump is supposed to have a trade deal with the EU or a trade deal with the UK. How's that going? Right? What did it take? 2 weeks before he went back on the deal that he had with the EU, right? How's that deal with Japan going? Right? Or how's that deal with South Korea going? I mean, yes, Prime Minister Carney has an impossible task, okay? But again, he ran the election earlier in the year on a maximalist position of elbows up and taking a hard line. And I get it. You can't punch Trump in the face, okay? And just due to geography, the US is always going to be Canada's biggest trading partner, all right? I understand that part totally, and that's fine. And if Mr. Carney had run on a pragmatic approach, saying that we're going to get the best deal that we can and just hope that when Mr. Trump leaves office, that we can go back to the old normal, fine. I would have been okay with that. But that's not the way he ran. He ran on a hard line position, taking a hard line position on the Americans, good or bad. And I didn't fall for it, but enough Canadians fell for it that they voted Liberals into power again. And this is just, it's kind of funny because now I hear political pundits talk about how the lost 10 years of economic progress from the Liberals. I even hear people like Scott Reed, who is a Liberal insider, talk about that on political panels online. And I'm like, yes, everyone knew that Trudeau didn't give a shit about economics, okay? We all knew that. He was absolutely terrible there. And what do? We voted in a party that was responsible for the last 10 years of poor economic performance. And Carney has surrounded himself with Trudeau Liberals, right? Trudeau Liberals, Trudeau cabinet ministers, and everything like that. And even though we knew that they were incompetent, he surrounded himself with those people. Now, I am sympathetic to the argument that, hey, look, he inherited the Liberals and that he can only get a few number of his people in charge. Fair enough there. Then don't put Trudeau cabinet ministers back in power. People like, Champagne, Anita Anand, Melanie Joly. Oh my God, these are completely incompetent people. Why are they still in power? Okay, you have 100. What was it? The Liberals got 168, 169 seats. You're telling me of that 167 people that we had to choose the same Liberal ministers that we had before, right? If we think about it, Trudeau doubled the size of the Canada's debt during his time, and what did we get for that? What did we get for the Liberals doubling Canada's debt during supposedly good years? All right, you can't blame. I think it's only $200 billion of the $650 billion worth of debt that the Liberals have piled on. Only $200 billion of that can be blamed on COVID. All right. The rest is insane liberal spending, right? And that liberal spending has put us in such a poor economic position now that we can't really react properly to this economic shitstorm that has hit us, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what's in the budget next week, and whether you want to break it out by operating budget and investments and whatnot. I'm looking at the bottom line. How big is this deficit going to be? Because the PBO, the interim PBO, has already said that it is a disaster. It is going to be a stupefying amount. Not my words. That's the interim parliamentary budget officer's words. That it is a complete disaster. I've heard of rumors that it's going to be in the neighborhood of $100 billion. This is COVID level spending to deal with Trump. Okay, it is a complete disaster, and the goddamn liberal rule of the last 10 years have made it very difficult for us to deal with any economic uncertainty in the future, because they just spent money like crazy. Yes, we have a new head coach in charge, but Carney's gone ahead with billions and billions and billions of spending promises. You can argue that things like the military, that we have to spend that type of money. Okay, sure, I guess so. I guess you can make that argument, but man, it's just a lot of money that we're going to be spending, and I just can't believe that the Liberals are still in charge after all the shit that they've put the rest of us through already. The way that they spend money. But I guess identity politics and team sport politics means that we're going to vote, that people are just going to vote liberal because that's the way they always voted, right? It's kind of like, it's funny about how Mayor Chow in Toronto is going to have to raise property taxes to deal with refugees and resettlement. Not resettlement. Taking care of all the temporary people have come to Toronto. But yet Toronto keeps voting for it. So congrats, Toronto. You voted for this tax increase on yourself. It's just very frustrating. I'm not saying the Conservatives would be any better, but at this point, after 10 years of Liberal rule, I'm willing to try anything, right? That's how desperate, people have become. Which is funny because, I am pretty much on the opposite side of most things that Pierre Poilievre has said. But 10 years of Liberals have turned me into alt-right. I'm willing to try anything. Anyways, thank you for listening to my rant today. I am very frustrated where we are, and we'll catch you on the next one.